Hello and welcome to CU150, the show about technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. I'm Tim Montague with the Small Business Development Center here at the Economic Development Corporation in Champaign, Illinois. And it's my pleasure to introduce episode 11. Today is June 3rd, 2014, and I'm joined by my special guests, Robin King, the CEO, and Fred Claussen, the Vice President of Development Services at EPL Bioanalytical Services, a biotech company in Decatur, Illinois, in Central Illinois. Welcome to the show, Robin and Fred.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
So we're setting some records in many ways with the show today, reaching to Decatur. So thank you for coming on to the show and working with a company that is much more established than most of the entrepreneurs and owners that we have on the show here. EPL is a 27-year-old company. So obviously you've got quite a bit of a story to tell. Give us a little bit of a background of how the company started and how it's changed over time.
Okay, well, I'll do that.
Absolutely.
EPL was founded in 1987. The original founders of the company based their strategy on the fact that the Environmental Protection Agency at this time was requiring what they called a data call-in, what might also be defined as pesticide re-registration process. So essentially EPA was mandated by Congress to develop a list basically of pesticides and develop and identify gaps in the data with regards to these products. And when I talk about data gaps, I'm talking about potential toxicology data gaps, environmental fate data gaps, these types of things. So at the time, there was a lot of demand for contract research organizations. So the founders developed a strategy to start a laboratory, an analytical chemistry laboratory that provides data that helps support these re-registration studies that EPA was requiring. So very good timing on their part. A lot of work, more work than most laboratories could handle, and over the years the company has maintained those same services, but also in the process has changed along with the face of agricultural technology. And in 2000, under new ownership, the company pursued a line of testing called nutrient composition testing, which was really a paradigm shift for us. The company was originally involved in doing what we call pesticide residue chemistry, right, which is a specific type of analytical chemistry. Nutritional composition testing was a different type of science for us, so required a lot of adaptation and changes in our way of thinking. And those services were initiated in 2000, and it took us actually the better part of 2 years to get those services up and running. 2 years and about $1 million. So it wasn't a cheap or fast service area to get involved in. But as time went by, that portion of the business grew significantly, and it grew rapidly. In 2004, Five.
Are you going to say me?
Yes. 2005, there's another change in ownership, and Robin King became our CEO. And at that point, we got an infusion of additional capital from other investors, and the nutritional composition portion of our business grew very rapidly at that point. We went from very small number of employees up to over 50 employees in a matter of just a few years. So we experienced a very rapid growth during that time period. So here in 2014, we're still basically around 50 employees. We still provide the nutritional compositional services to our ag biotech partners. We also provide the pesticide residue support services for our chemical manufacturers. In many cases, those companies are one and the same. So that's where we are in 2014, and building services in other areas. We've recently started a molecular biology lab which looks at proteins and DNA of genetically modified plants. This type of data, these tests are also required for acceptance of those seed products around the world, various regulatory agencies. So that's the history in a nutshell.
Okay, so we've got nutritional chemistry, ag chemistry, and molecular biology. And how do you fit into the picture, Robin? What is it that attracted you to EPL, and how have your strengths helped EPL grow?
Well, I was very fortunate, very blessed to have spent most of my career, even though by training I'm a medical technologist, but most of my career I've spent working in the ag industry, in research, development of new crop protection products, and in making sure that those products are safe for the environment, that they help produce abundant, healthy food, and they do it in a way that's sustainable. And so I was very fortunate. I worked for many years at one of the bigger companies that provides ag crop protection. And then I left there and went to a smaller company that worked in the field of mycotoxins, which is also a food, feed, agricultural safety issue. And because of my past experience, that company was sort of struggling. It was an analytical lab that also produced some products, and they were sort of struggling. And so I had some experience in helping them sort of turn that around and become really successful as a laboratory and as a product producer. And they were looking at EPL at a time when they were having when they had one of those transitions where sometimes that happens, where the business was transitioning from the traditional crop chemical type business to looking at some of these other products. And so I had a lot of experience in turning the lab around, and I also had a lot of experience in ag. And so fortunately for me, a group of new investors came in and asked me to join. And what I love about our company, one of the things I really love about our company is the culture that we have here. It is an entrepreneurial culture. Each of the employees are really owners of the company, when you say that's true.
Yes.
And they have, we do everything pretty much as teams. You know, people can participate, people can continue to learn and develop new skills. And when you're in an area of science and research like ag is nowadays, there are continually new challenges, new technologies, new ideas. And so as a small company that has an entrepreneurial spirit, we're able to use those things to our advantage, to be flexible, to be responsive. We even, really as a company, we have a unique sales and marketing effort, for example. Actually, every employee is part of the sales and marketing effort, especially as you know, with social media and technology now that allows us to do all kinds of things. Each of our employees can reach out. We are in a business where we sell scientist to scientist, essentially, and so being able to have people learn and develop and grow and become experts in technology, and then share that as they go out to meetings and doing presentations and radio shows on the internet. We are kind of the marketing, and we each feel like we're owners of this business, and we're able to contribute in ways that is kind of unusual, and it's really fun. It's a great group of people, wouldn't you say?
I agree.
So let's give our listeners a concise example of the types of services. Can you walk us through the life cycle of one of the services that you offer?
Sure. Well, if you look at one of the areas that we serve is genetically enhanced crops. And so one of the things that the nutritional work that we do, a large part of that is focused on providing very detailed and very comprehensive data to show that a genetically enhanced crop is not any different nutritionally or even with respect to some anti-nutrients or naturally occurring toxins, then its non-enhanced counterpart.
Sure.
And so we test thousands of samples and look at a whole range of analyses for nutrition, like protein, fatty acids, amino acids, vitamins, minerals. We look at things like mycotoxins at times, or things that might be contaminants, and we're doing that work to assure that those products are safe, to make sure that they haven't unintentionally changed something that would cause a problem. And then we also do studies, and we would also look at feed that's produced using those enhanced and non-enhanced crops. And feeding, we can do the analysis to show that the material that's fed to the animals does include that enhancement, and they feed it to the animals to show that the animals don't have any deleterious effects, that there aren't any problems. And so huge studies and huge amounts of money are spent to assure the safety of those products.
Now, what modifications are we talking about? I assume we're talking about some basic feed crops, for example, like corn and beans.
Yes.
And then
Corn,
what traits are we selecting for these days?
I would say the vast majority of traits that are on the market and are still coming onto the market are traits that are crop protection traits. So in other words, they allow you to use safer chemistry on a plant without killing the plant. So things like Roundup tolerance, things like BT, which is actually it's used in organic farming, and they've been able to enhance a plant by including the protein that's produced by what's the organism is Bacillus thuringiensis, and it produces a protein that is active only against certain target bugs that cause damage. They don't hurt people. In fact, you can, in fact, at home, I sprinkle it on my tomato plants, and the tomato hornworm dries up and dies, and everybody else is okay. And so now they can, in a much more targeted way, put that protein into the plant. And the plant, when the bug, chews on the plant, the bug dies, but it's very safe for everybody else. So they've been able to enhance crops and use less harmful chemicals, and it works out really well for everybody.
Okay.
Even target organisms.
I understand, I think, the first two legs. You've got ag chemistry, where you're testing for residues, right, making sure that foodstuffs or crop or feedstuffs are safe.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the nutritional chemistry, and then this molecular biology. Let's talk a little more about that. How is molecular coming onto the scene, and why is that a growth industry?
Sure. Well, molecular biology is also used as a tool to fully characterize the enhancements that are made genetically to plants. So they do very detailed studies to look to make sure that they know how they've changed the plant. But those same tools can also be used for things like identifying very rapidly microorganisms that would cause sickness or illness in food. They can be used for a variety of different human and food modifications that are made. You can use those tools to look at that and study those things in very minute detail to assure that there are no health or safety issues. But one of the biggest ones is looking at microorganisms. Instead of having my background, my emphasis is in microbiology. And so one of the big food safety issues that people worry about nowadays are things like salmonella and E. coli, bacterial contamination. And you can use tools of molecular biology instead of having to get a sample and grow the organism and then do all kinds of and it takes a while to grow the organisms. And then you have to then take those organisms and put them into different test media, try to figure out what it is and what might be effective against it. With tools like polymerase chain reaction, PCR, you can actually identify those organisms very rapidly within an hour and even know potentially what might be active in fighting against that organism. So those are some of the food safety type of uses for some of that technology.
And so, are we talking with those molecular biology? Are we talking about standard food crops that we would think about coming from farm to table, like spinach?
Yes, absolutely. If you've noticed in the news lately, the issue with microbiological contamination is happening across the board in all kinds of products. It's happening not only in human products, but animal feed as well. There have been some recent scares with dog treats, for your pets, where there appears to be some component of salmonella or some other microorganism causing illness. Cantaloupe, I mean, you name it, and you can probably find a headline where some problem has occurred recently.
Okay. And so are you doing business with growers directly, or are you doing business with the seed companies, or how does that work?
Our primary business is really with the ag side more than the food side. So we're looking at the crops and then the processed fractions from those crops that would go into food and feed. So we're focused more on the ag side, and that's the first place you start to look. Another issue in food safety is mycotoxins. Huge issue. Mycotoxins are naturally occurring toxins that are produced by fungi, and most people in the ag area would be familiar with aflatoxin, for example. That happens in corn. So often, depending on weather conditions and moisture conditions, crops are screened for mycotoxins, and then the processed fraction because it's a toxin that can't occur in storage. So you screen it right out of the field sometimes, and maybe you don't have the mycotoxin, but you store it in a bin and it develops there, or you process it into some other fraction and it can occur there. So that's a food safety issue where you must do testing all the way from coming from the field until you get it into probably a finished food product.
Fascinating.
And we do lots of different mycotoxins, and they just keep, new ones keep being identified that are causing problems.
Well, I'm sure we could talk all day about all of this fascinating technology, and I have a tremendous appreciation for what your technology does. But let's talk also about the company. You mentioned early on in the interview, and I read in the backgrounder that you have a very long employee tenure, averaging upwards of 15 years. What is special about EPL, and why do employees stay there so long? And when you say that every employee is an owner, what do you mean?
How about you do this?
Sure. So I'm all about science. That's why Robin's been doing most of the talking. I'm all about science. We love science. And what keeps me motivated and keeps me coming back to work at EPL year after year. I've been there 26 years. I started here shortly after I graduated from the U of I in 1988 with a bachelor's degree in agronomy. I saw the company as a huge opportunity for me to basically get my feet wet in what I considered a high-tech service area. I have a lot of chemistry background coming into the company, and this is a chemistry laboratory. So I'm motivated by science, and the opportunities here are endless with regards to science opportunities. Multiple opportunities for continuing education, on-the-job learning. The sky's the limit as far as I see it. So that's what keeps me motivated. But there are other motivating factors. We're a very flexible organization. We allow our employees a lot of leeway, a lot of flexibility with regards to what they can do here internally. They have the same opportunities that I have. I think the issues with longevity have to do with some of those issues. I don't know. I think those, for me, those are the things that motivate me and keep me that keep me coming back.
So your workforce is obviously mostly a technical one. Tell us a little bit about that. How many of your employees are hands-on doing science?
So I would say approximately 3/4.
Oh yes.
Yeah, at least are
or more
are actually at the bench in the laboratory, preparing samples, analyzing samples, running instruments, training. We're a very diverse organization. We emphasize cross-functionality, cross-training. So individuals that are working in a molecular group right now have the opportunities or the potential of working in other groups, or maybe they have in the past. We try to move people across groups to give them good background and training in all areas, at the same time trying to get them to focus on specific areas. As a company, we don't survive unless we have expertise in certain areas, whether it's on the nutritional side, looking at vitamins, at minerals analysis, on the pesticide side, whether it's looking at pesticide residues, mycotoxins. Each of those areas can be seen as a sub-discipline, which require a high level of expertise from the standpoint of being able to converse with our clients, convince them that we know what we're doing, and to carry out the projects that we are contracted to do with them. So trying to maintain a balance between cross-functionality and specific expertise in specific areas. I think that's the balance that we...
How about technology?
Well, technology goes hand in hand with people. Neither one can function on their own, obviously, and on the technology side, we have to maintain cutting-edge technology, whether it's with the equipment that we use to process and homogenize and grind samples, or all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which would include things like triple quadrupole mass spectrometers, for example. That's the kind of equipment that's necessary for us to maintain our line of business. And it's all very expensive. So, of course, planning, scheduling, all of those things that go into a service enterprise and business are very important. And being able to project and predict revenue and to make logical decisions, rational decisions when it comes to acquiring that technology, all of that's necessary for us. But really, without the experienced personnel, the personnel with the expertise and the technology, we couldn't do what we're doing here.
And so let's talk a little bit about the future of the company. In 5 years, when you're looking back, Robin, how will you determine whether or not you've been successful?
Well, 5 years nowadays is a really long time. But our vision for the company, and the one that I believe we are actually making progress on, is to be the most trusted laboratory in our industry. And that trust means a lot to us, because trust is a word that's used a lot, but it has some different components. And of course, the first thing is, of course, we're honest, and we're not telling lies, and we fulfill our promises. But there are some higher level things that are involved in trust. One is intent. Intent meaning that we're always in a situation where it needs to be a win-win. Our customers need to be winners just as well as we do. And so we have to have that right attitude. And then we have to have capabilities. And so we've talked about capabilities here. We've talked about some of the things that we can do, the fact that we've been fortunate to have great investors that have reinvested in our people and allowed us to have that latest technology, and we've used those tools to develop our capabilities. And then the last thing is we have to deliver. And that's the bottom line really, is we have all of these capabilities where we have the right attitude, we have integrity, and bottom line, we deliver results. And we're starting to see that we are becoming well known in our industry, one of the leaders, and that's really awesome. And that's what I expect, is that we will be seen as the leader in our industry for contract laboratory research. Don't you think?
We're there in some instances, and we'll know we're there because our customers will tell us we're there.
And what does that mean in terms of growth of the company? What is healthy growth? I mean, all companies want to grow, and the mantra is grow or die. So what is your goal for growth?
Our goal has been, and we have delivered about 20% per year. That ebbs and flows as things are cyclical, but basically that's our growth strategy, and we have been very fortunate so far to deliver on that kind of growth, especially if you average it over the cycles. So it's been a great fun ride for sure.
So if you're listening to the show and you want more information about EPL Bioanalytics, you can go to their website, which is eplbas.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, Robin and Fred. Do you have any other parting comments for the listening public?
Well, we're just so grateful for the opportunity to get to talk about our company. I think we all feel pretty passionately about what we do, and we're just fortunate to be in an industry where we're doing something good for our global society. And so it's very rewarding, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.
Well, thank you. It's great having you on the show. You're listening to CU150. This has been episode 11. Today is June 3rd, 2014. Thanks for listening.